Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Make Sense with Your Money show. I am your host, Cynthia Hurley. And tonight I got a question to ask you. How much does your zip code affect your financial future? Now, before you answer, I'm not talking about how smart you are. I'm not talking about your intelligence. I'm not talking about your work ethic. I'm not talking about your God given potential. I know God all gives us gifts, but what I'm talking about tonight is access, right? um, Access. What type of access do you have? Okay. Access to education, access to banking, access to affordable housing, business opportunities, access to financial resources that can help families build wealth. That's what I'm talking about. And, some people are born into neighborhoods that are filled with opportunities, and then others are born into communities that are not, right? And we know as African Americans, we have faced decades, very long time of, the economic challenges that we go through. But does where you live determine where you end up financially? That's the question that I'm asking tonight. And I'm going to go biblical on you, okay? And that's okay because that's the book that we all should be living by. But in Ecclesiastes 7 and 12, King Solomon said that money is a defense. The entire scripture goes, wisdom is a defense as money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it. All right. And so what he's saying that money is a defense. Now, was he saying that money solves every problem? Or was he teaching us that money gives us or provides us with a level of protection, options, and stability in a world that's filled with so many uncertainties? So tonight, we are going to explore the connection between money, between opportunity, and community. I'm listen, I've been waiting to get into this show because we're going to talk about zip codes and how zip codes can influence the outcomes. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with this because we all go through it, right? Zip codes also determine why the financial literacy matters, what role the leaderships play in the economic development, you know. And this is going to be more than a part one. We're going to probably go into a part. I know we're going to have a part two. But even with your elected officials and how you get involved in what's going on in your community, and most importantly, what steps can you take to build financial security no matter where you live? No matter where you live. Because your zip code, it may explain some of your challenges, but it does not have that authority to determine your future. So let's get into the show. Now, if wisdom is a defense and money is a defense, right? What exactly does that mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does Solomon mean when he said that money is a defense? Well, when you look at the word defense, and I'm talking from a Hebrew perspective because the Bible back in the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. So a lot of those words you have to dig a little deep, investigate the real meaning behind the Hebrew word. So the defense means protection, shelter. It means like a shade, like a covering. That's what that word defense means. So you think of a person that maybe, let me give you an example. I don't know, like if you're outside, okay, and the perfect example, yesterday we was at my niece's graduation and the sun was like scorching. So we all had to get in the shade for, covering, like protection, so that we would not get burned, right? So that word defense means that it shields you from the impact. Like we was trying to get away from the full impact of the sun. Well, that word defense means that it protects you. The word, I mean, the money, it defense is a defense that protects you. Okay. That's what it means. It shields you from the full impact of the things that you go through. What was Solomon not saying? He was not saying that money saves you, money replaces God, money makes you wise. He wasn't saying none of that. But basically, it's like a shield from the hardships of life. That's the word I was looking for. Okay. It protects you from many of life's hardships. So let's just give you an example. If your car breaks down with no money, that's a crisis for many people. If we don't have no backup plan, your car breaking down, that is a crisis. Hello, I've been there. I know what it feels like. But with money, it's just an inconvenience. If you lose your job, you don't have no savings, but you depend on your car to get to work, that's panic. With money or savings, that's breathing room. Like it's not so detrimental because you have options, because you have money. So, you look at that and then you understand exactly what I'm saying. Money is a defense. Money don't solve every problem, but guess what? It cushions many of the problems. And, that's why Solomon said it's a defense. Okay. Now, wisdom. He said, but wisdom gives life. Well, everybody needs wisdom. I know I need wisdom. Every day I pray for wisdom. Hope you praying for wisdom as well. Because wisdom teaches you how to learn money, right? How to keep money, how to multiply money, how not to lose your money. We all know that people who are not used to having a lot of money, they don't know how to manage it. That's why when they get it, it don't last. Okay. Wisdom creates sustainability. Now, that verse is not elevating money above wisdom. What it's saying is that money protects you temporarily. Wisdom protects you for life. Now, what does money defend us against? Well, I just went over the example of the difference between having an emergency when you have money versus not having money. So it defends us against emergencies, eviction, debt, unexpected expenses. We know life happens, right? We have a lack of options when we don't have the money. So what does that have to do with zip codes? Well, if money is a defense, then what happens when entire communities, I'm talking about entire communities, have less access to money, less access to opportunity, less access to, capital or financial education? What happens to that community? I'm going to tell you what happens to that community. People pay more for basic things, basic necessities. It's just living in certain zip codes is expensive, very expensive, right? It's true. Well, if you don't have no good savings, you don't have no good credit, you end up paying more. We all know this, right? Higher interest rates, of course you do. The high insurance premiums, we all know how that work. That's why, okay, and when I mean for insurance, I'm talking about if you own a home, you end up paying more. Why you end up paying more? Well, because if your community, your neighborhood is red line for a lot of break-ins, and remember, they keep records on all of these things. That's why you got the census, you got the anyway, they keep records on all of these things, right? All of these things are reported. That's what I'm looking for. They're reported. Your break-ins are reported with the precinct. All of these things get reported because they have to keep the numbers. They have to keep track of what's going on in this community, that community, this community. That's why they know where to flood. Come on, bad food in certain communities, flood the drugs. They flood the alcohol. I mean, all kind of stuff. You see in the buses in certain communities, I see these ads on TV, I mean, on the back of the bus, top dog. And then when you look on the ad, they got a African American woman and she got these big earrings in it. I mean, it just, y'all know what I'm saying. You know, they actually are trying to familiarize that ad with what is in your community. Young black female, big earrings, you know, braids in the hair. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but they're trying to appeal to you. Because watch this: if there's crime and different things that happen in the African American community, they know who to call. Images, they watch this. Images sell. They sell through the media. They sell through images. They sell through ads. Call Top Dog, and then what? If you hear them on the radio, they got somebody rapping talking about call Top Dog. You appealing to zip codes where all of that is the normal behavior, or that is the culture. Let me say that. So the system is all, they know what they're doing. Okay. Zip codes, right? So you paying high insurance premium for your car, for your home. Watch this. I see so many cars now with out of town plates. You know why? Because it's the insurance in New York is too expensive. It's too expensive. So guess what people doing? They're going out of state to get their insurance. And guess what? If you live in one zip code, all right, and versus living out in Long Island or upstate New York, you're going to pay. Because if there is more crime going on in that particular neighborhood, or if it's already marked as that zip code is a problem, then the powers that be, or let me just say certain organizations, they know. So you pay high for high insurance premiums, higher fees for everything, higher borrowing costs. The less money you have, the more expensive life becomes. Okay, so this is not to talk about anybody that may live in one of those zip codes, but we're just talking about it. All right. A person with an excellent credit can finance a car at a low rate, while somebody with poor credit is going to pay $1,000 for the same vehicle. We already know that. We already know that. So when you have fewer options, okay, it lessens the opportunities. You lose access to better opportunities, right? Okay, so the goal is let me just get back into some of the things that before I get into what the goal is. So generational wealth becomes harder to build, right? When you spend all of your money or your income surviving, okay? Without financial reserves, because listen, wisdom gives us options. Money gives us options. Money gives us options because it is a defense. And without financial reserves, everything becomes a crisis. Everything becomes a crisis. Okay. Now, it's harder. Let me just say it's more difficult to build generational wealth because when you spend your money or your income surviving, then there's little money that you have left to invest, to buy property, to start business, to save for retirement, to leave an inheritance. But I want to park right here for just a minute because I know my community. Let me just say that. I know my community. A lot of you too know your communities. And I'm not going to say we don't have money, because we do have money. It's just that we spend it in the wrong places. We spend a lot of our money buying liabilities, things that don't grow, doing parties for our children, $5,000 birthday parties when they're only 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. When you can take that money and do so much more with it, or when we get our income taxes, we want to floss and do all kind of, so much. We have the money, but we rather invest in liabilities than to invest in assets. So I'm not going to call our community poor. I refuse to say that. I know there's some that may have difficult times, but there's a whole lot of us that has access to income, and we just don't do the right thing with it. That's what I'm going to say. We have the capabilities. When we get money, we can set up, funds or things to do in our heritage. We just choose to do what we want. That part right there. And as a result, your children see the same financial disastrous behaviors that you have. And you pass that down to your children. So it just create generational, yeah, it's not, I don't even want to say the word, but it's not generational wealth. Okay. It's generational poverty. That's what you pass down to your kids. Children often begin, look, I watch and I do, let's put it like this. Children do what they see their parents do. They do what they see their parents do. I have a very good friend of mine, and her mother and her father, they always talked to her. They instilled her. Like, they would say, no, you always got to have good credit. They will always tell her this when she was a little child. So you can't spend your money on anything. You got to make sure you save your money. Now, I know some parents are raising their kids the best way they know how, and they raising their kids based on the way they were raised. So they don't, a lot of them may not have that financial literacy, or they were able to grow up that way. But there's always a good time to start. But she was telling me her story, and she is what, almost 60 now, and she still has those same behaviors, those habits that she was taught when she was little. All right. So let me move on. So I think I covered 3 points, right? We're at point number 4. All right, because the first point that I do not want you to miss is that people pay more for basic necessities. And this, when we talk about the high insurance premiums, and you pay more when you in certain zip codes. We know that, right? You have fewer options during emergencies. That's number 2, right? Anything becomes a crisis because we don't have money as our defense. We don't have a savings. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Okay. All right. Number 3, generational wealth become harder to build. That's what I just talked about, because we spend our money in the wrong places. We buy and invest in liabilities rather than assets. Number 4, which is where I'm at now, in certain zip codes, financial predators move in to our communities. You know why? Because they know, look, they know that they can come in and take advantage. They know, right, that where traditional financial services are absent, they can come in and create a stronghold. What's a stronghold? Well, payday lenders. Okay. Payday lenders. Y'all know who the payday lenders are. Now, a lot of them may not be in our communities, but they do a lot of advertising in our communities. Okay. So that, instead of buying furniture, we rent the furniture to own. That's because we're not educationally aware of how bad that is, right? Payday lenders, or you can buy, you got to pay, you paycheck, you need $500 to get you over to the next week. We can give it to you. And that $500 do not get paid back in the next week or the next 2 weeks or whenever. It does not get paid back. You know why? Because those type of loans and lenders are like a 500% interest rate. I know, I've seen them turn into just disastrous. Klarna. Now, see, they know what they be doing, and they know only certain people use these vehicles. I work on credit reports very often, and now, credit cards used to be, I would see credit reports overloaded with credit cards, subprime credit cards, that is, in certain zip codes. Now I'm seeing Klarna and Afterpay and Sezzle. These are these what you call it? These buy now, pay later. And I'm saying, but you have too many buy now, pay laters. It ends up to not being able to afford to pay every 2 weeks. Because the $20 here, the $15 here, that adds up, y'all. So, The predatory lending, we all know what that is. That's the unethical practices that these lenders use. Car dealerships, they park right in zip codes. I'm not going to say, look, zip codes, certain zip codes. And they know that when people get their income tax or people got money, right? They lure them in there, get a car with no money down, bad credit. That's the first thing because a car is the most easiest thing to get. You can get a car with bad credit. They just gonna rape you with your interest rate and your payments. So all of these things go on, excessive fees, going into the supermarket. You know, in my church, where my church is at, right? The zip code. All right. Now you go in supermarkets, the supermarket over there, everything is overpriced. Not only that, the meat is bad. And I'm saying, you selling this meat to people? You selling this meat? Why is it $20 for this? And you go over in a regular neighborhood, you go over to another zip code and it don't cost that much. And why the meat look better? I'm just saying. Zip codes, right? So, and watch this. People are, they don't, what's the word I'm saying? Because I'm not going to offend anybody, but it's just people are choosing from bad options. And if you're not fighting back, that's a whole nother show. Because we need to start fighting back. We do not need to allow these companies, these businesses, let me say these small businesses, to come into our neighborhoods to treat us any kind of way, and we're the ones that's supporting them. Okay? Yeah, that part. And it's so much talent in these zip codes. What do I mean? Just because there's a lack of opportunity, that don't mean that there's no talent. That's where all of the talent is. That's where our future doctors are. That's where the entrepreneurs are, because they're tired of being tired. The inventors, the authors, the business owners. They live in every zip code, but you find a lot of them in certain zip codes. So, a lot of people, and I understand, you can become hopeless. That can become the norm, right? When they see, they don't get to see anything outside of their community, outside of that zip code, right? They see homes deteriorating, people hanging out on the corner, shooting in gangs and all that kind of stuff. So they don't feel that there's no opportunity. So that mindset can trap people. It can become a prison. But there's a hope, there's hope, there's hope, there's hope, there's hope. Because why zip codes can influence, your outcome, the outcomes. It can influence outcomes, but it don't have the final say, right? People can get financial education. They can improve their credit. They can build businesses. And we see that because look at all the rappers, where they come from. But that's a whole nother story, because a lot of them are selling their souls to get their wealth. I'm not talking about that. But you got some people who say, I refuse to be determined by where I live. Hello. Okay, that's right. But anyway, so Solomon said that money is a defense. He also said wisdom is a defense. Okay. So if money can be lost, wisdom can help you rebuild it. If financial ignorance can be lost, wisdom can help you rebuild it. Wisdom. We need wisdom, y'all. That's what we need. Okay. If opportunities are limited, wisdom can help you create them. And that's why financial education is so important, because wisdom often becomes the bridge where you are and where you want to be. So how do we strengthen our financial defenses regardless of where we are, regardless of where we live? I want to talk to you about solutions. And I know that I'm going to have to, end this, and we're going to have to pick up from where we end tonight into next week. I said this is going to be 2 parts because, we're going to, because of time. So solution number 1, let's talk solutions, right? You can build financial capital even if you don't have financial wealth. Yes, you can. People think, well, I don't have the money, so I can't build wealth. That's not true. That is a lie. I know, because I'm a product of it. A lot of people, I know that you're products of it. So watch this. There are different forms of capital, y'all. There's different forms of capital. You know, financial capital, that's money, right? Social capital, that's relationships. There's different forms of capital. Knowledge capital they have. What is that? Education, reputation capital. That's like trust, your time, right? You can start listen, a person who knows somebody who live in a bank, or you may know somebody who is a realtor, or you may know somebody who's a mortgage broker, or you may know somebody who's an attorney or an insurance agent or a business owner. They have access to opportunities that people don't never see. So what does that mean? That means that you have to learn first of all, what it is that you want to do. That's number one. You have to get yourself in a position where you got to change your mindset, because you can build financial capital even if you don't have financial wealth through relationships. I just told you all the different forms of capital. Through relationships, through knowledge, through wisdom. Learn something. Learn something. And that begins your journey to opportunities, right? First thing I would tell anybody though, and that is solution number 2: improve your credit before you need it. You always need it. Start building them kids credit, your children's credit, and don't use it. Don't use it. We all know how important credit is. I'm not even going to go through talking about credit. I talk about credit all the time, but a 750, 60 credit score can be worth more than $20,000 sitting in your bank. Okay. And can you give me your ears tonight? All right. It just gives you so much more opportunities for better housing, better insurance, better interest rates, better funding opportunities. Credit can do it, right? Solution number 3: bank where the wealthy people bank. Just because the bank is on your corner, don't mean you got a bank there. Let me park here first. Let me just say something. I know that some people feel uncomfortable being around wealthy people or being around people who they think got more money than they do, or they have more money. But this is how you grow. This is how you grow, right? You don't have to move into their neighborhoods to bank where they are, but there's other opportunities available in different neighborhoods. That means that you got to stop limiting yourself to the bank on the corner. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Many people in underserved communities, these zip codes, right? They don't learn about this. All right, I'm going to just do another show. I'm going to do another show, and we're going to talk about all of these things, right? You got community developed financial institutions. You got, of course, we know about the first time home buyers program, but you got so many different programs that you can get access to, but you need to know, right? You just need to know. And that's where wisdom come in. You do your research. Have you ever went to the library? So many different opportunities, but because we don't know, that's the problem. You don't have to live in a wealthy zip code, right, to use financial institutions that serve wealthy zip codes. Because guess what? Them wealthy zip codes, they take advantage of all that stuff. Hello. Where my ears at tonight? Where's my ears at? All right. Solution number 4: learn a skill that you need to learn. You got to have a skill. That pays you like more than a minimum wage, right? The internet has changed a lot. And there's this commercial that I see often. And I like the commercial because it highlights the fact that people take jobs to make ends meet, right? They're actually working on a job that they don't like, but they're doing it because it pays the bills, right? But this particular ad, I think it's called Conservo, is the name of the app. And it shows people how to what's the word I'm looking for? How to strengthen their gift or learn how to promote their gift, how to start a business. I think it's called Conservo or something like that. But anyway, it shows the difference between the before and after. People struggle on the job, they don't get appreciated, they're making minimum wage, is not paying the bills, and then they run into somebody who is basically working off of their skills. I mean, working off of what? Yeah, they're not working off. They listen. I can take a job doing something to pay the bills, but because I may learn how to cook, or I may have a certain skill in a certain area, this particular app, it shows you how to build off of that, how to scale off of that, how to maybe start your own business, or, get into a company where you can get more money because of that skill that you have, but you just didn't know how to work it. Yeah, you need to check that app out, because a lot of people are in positions like that. They're in situations like that and they don't know how to get out. They don't know how to get out. All right. But a lot of people have a lot of skills. They just ain't using them the right way because they don't know how. Okay. But now because of the internet, it allows people to earn beyond what the economic limit is in your neighborhood or in your community. Just because you live in a zip code that says this community lives off of what is it? The wages, minimum wage. No, your income don't longer have to match your zip code. That's the point I'm making. It don't have to. Okay, because of the internet and so many other opportunities available, you just got to learn how to scale. And with that, that's gonna have to end the show, because we're gonna begin. We'll pick up again next week. All right, we'll pick up again next week. But I want to leave you with this. I want to say that your zip code, it may explain some of your challenges. I'm not saying that it all does, but it does not have the authority to divine your future. Okay, your zip code can tell me where you live, but it doesn't tell me what you can learn. It don't tell me what you can earn. It don't tell me what you can become, and it don't tell me how much wealth you can build. Hello. All right. And it definitely does not tell me what God can do in and through your life. So, as I close the show today, I want to leave you with one thought. And that thought is that your zip code may affect your starting point, but it does not have to determine your ending point. Today, we learned that money is a defense because it provides options, it provides protection and stability. But we also learned that wisdom is even a greater defense, because wisdom helps us to build wealth, it helps us to create opportunities, and it helps us to make better financial decisions. So, what am I challenging you to do until the next time? Well, actually, I'm challenging you to do it and just keep it as a habit. I challenge you to take one step towards strengthening your financial future, right? Whether it's improving your credit, increasing your savings, learning a new skill, or becoming more involved in your community. We're going to talk about all of that next week. But do something. All right. I'm Cynthia Hurley. This is the Make Sense with Your Money show. Join me next week as we continue this conversation and explore different ways, okay, more practical ways where you can build wealth no matter where you live. Until then, be blessed and make sense with your money.